Hey, my fellow property managers, Marc Cunningham at Grace Property Management. Have you ever been asked by an owner client if you would consider managing their multifamily property? Well, how do we define multifamily? Is a duplex a multifamily property? Is a fourplex? Does it take 10 units? What exactly defines it? There's no exact definition to distinguish multifamily from something that maybe has more than one unit. But the best definition, I believe, is simply this. Multifamily has common areas. So if there's a fourplex with a common area laundry room, that's considered multifamily, or at least I think it should be considered multifamily. Anything with a common area that's shared by everybody in the property should be considered multifamily. So if an owner client approaches you and says, hey, will you manage this? And it's a 8 unit, a 10 unit, a 25 unit, a 50, a couple hundred units, how do you price it? How do you say, here's what I will charge to manage your 50 unit building? Because it shouldn't be the same as a single family. So it's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one is you need to decide and understand, is this a lease up or is this an existing occupied multifamily property? Because you're going to treat it completely different from your approach as a property manager. If someone asks you, hey, I've just built a brand new 12 unit building, I'd like you to manage it for me, and it's vacant right now. That's going to fall under a lease-up category. And you want to treat that very differently than if it's an existing 12-unit building that's occupied. So let's look at the lease-up side of things first. And a couple of things you want to keep in mind. Number one is, how much leasing effort is this really going to require of you? Are these easy to lease units? Are they going to be things that you have to put signage on the building and hire someone to staff a leasing office there? Are you driving across town 7 times a day to show many, many vacant units? So really get a clear understanding and be realistic with yourself, because it's probably going to require more leasing activity than you suspect. But just as importantly with that, who's going to pay for that leasing? If you're putting a big sign up on the building, are you as the property manager going to pay for that? Are you going to staff a leasing person? And are you as the PM expected to pay for that? Or is the owner of the building paying for that? Is the building having its own website for marketing? Who's paying for that? Are they doing professional pictures? As you can imagine, there's a lot of marketing that goes into a multifamily, and there's no right or wrong on who pays for it, but you need to have clarity so that you understand as the PM who's paying for that. Thirdly, how will you be compensated for managing the property during this lease up? If they hand you a vacant, beautiful building, it's still vacant, meaning no income is coming in on this building. And managing a vacant property takes more work, more effort, more time and energy than managing an occupied property. So if your management fee is simply based upon a percentage of gross income, and in month 1 it's vacant and so nobody pays rent, you just did a lot of work and you did it for free. That's not a very good business model, because you need to make sure that the income coming in offsets the expenses you are paying out for the management of that vacant building. So how are you going to price that in? And there's a variety of ways to do that. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you what I believe is the best way to price out the management of a multifamily building. But let's flip to occupied. You say, no, Marc, the person that's coming to me, it's not a lease up, it's already occupied. Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind this way. Number one, what problems are you expected to solve? Very rarely are owner clients giving you an occupied multifamily building which they had been managing themselves. Typically, it's been managed by another PM company, and either the owner client fired that PM company, or that PM company fired the owner and stepped out. So you need to know why. What problems are you being expected to solve? Do they have high delinquency? Because if so, that's going to be a big deal for you to come in and clean up a bad rent roll with a lot of delinquent payments, meaning it's going to take you a lot more time and energy than you suspected. Same thing with deferred maintenance. That can be very common in a large multifamily building. You need to get a clear understanding before you quote any pricing on what it is you're stepping into. You need to know how difficult the onboarding process is going to be. If it's 50 units, that's a lot of onboarding. That's 50 new leases you've got to set up in your system. You've got to read the entire lease agreement. That lease agreement may be completely different than the normal lease agreement you have in place, but you're required by law now to honor the terms of those lease agreements. So read through the lease agreements, do your due diligence, review the rent roll, do some unit inspections. What type of deferred maintenance is there? What are the typical problems that are being encountered in this property? And how much of a difficulty is it going to be for you to set up the property in your system? We also recommend that you walk the property by yourself. Go in the common areas, look in the corners, look under the shrubs, How dirty is the property? Has it been maintained? If you spend some time walking around and looking at it through the eyes of a prospective tenant, you can get a good sense of what you're looking for there. Review the rent roll in detail and talk to some residents. Ask them how it's going. Ask them the biggest complaints and problems they have. How is the parking situation? How is the maintenance situation? How are their neighbors? Get a true sense from those existing tenants what they think about that. Say, okay, well, that all kind of makes sense, but how do I price it? What quote do I give them to say, here's how much I will charge you to manage this multifamily property? Well, before I answer that question, I want to thank the sponsor for this month's video, Showdigs. Showdigs does on-demand showings of these vacant properties. So if you say, well, gosh, I don't have time to drive across town and show the vacancy. You know who does? Showdigs. On-demand showings that you can have them do so you don't have to spend the time to do that. Not only do they do on-demand showings, they also do property inspections, occupied property inspections on demand by licensed real estate agents. Very cool program, very interesting business they have set up as a way to help us as property managers get our time back. So if you have trouble showing properties because you're just too busy, that's where Showdigs can help in. They can help in a small way, or they can help in a large way, taking all of your showings. They can automate the showing process, completely take it off your hands if you want them to do so, or just help you a little bit. So go onto their website, showdigs.com, get a demo, find out what they do for us, see how they can help you do your occupied property inspections, how they can do showings of vacant properties for you to get back your time. Okay, so how do we establish this management fee? Somebody comes to you and says, hey, here's my 20 unit vacant building. I want you to manage it. What will you charge me? And you think, well, gosh, I can't charge my normal management fee that I would charge on a single family home. It just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense. So I propose you come at it from a completely different aspect. You're going to back into your management fee. Here's what I mean. The first question you're going to ask yourself is this: how many dollar bills per month do I want to collect in order to manage this property? What do I need to make? Not percentage-wise. How many dollars do I need to make at the end of the month in order to make it worth it? So in this imaginary scenario, you're looking at a 20-unit building and you say, you know what? I need $1,000. If I can make $1,000 a month, that would cover my overhead, cover my costs, cover the liability, the risk, everything else. If I can make $1,000 a month, I'll manage this property. Okay, that's step number one. Now, step number two is you simply are going to back into that to determine what percentage of the gross income equals $1,000, meaning you need to review the rent roll. So in this imaginary case, there's 20 units and they're each renting for $1,000 a month. You say, oh, the rent roll on this property, if they're all occupied, and we know they're not always all occupied, but if they're all occupied, that'll be bringing in $20,000 a month in rent for this 20-unit building, and I want to make $1,000 a month. Well, let's go back to fourth grade math. You simply take your $1,000, you divide it by the rent roll of $20,000, it gives you 0.05. Remember seventh grade math, you move the decimal 2 places? Yeah. Move the decimal 2 places, that's a 5% management fee. So you'd quote your owner client, it'd be 5%. Now, if there's going to be a lot of turnover, or if you think, gosh, it's a lease up, you may want to also build in a base management fee. To say, for example, hey, Mr. Owner Client, the management fee that I would charge you for the management of this property would be the greater, on a monthly basis, the greater of $1,000 or 5% of the management fee. We'll calculate it both ways every month, and whatever number is greater, that is the fee you would pay me to manage this property. So as the rent roll increases, my 5% is going to kick in. But if there's ever a lot of vacancies, if we have a lot of turnover, or if it's a lease up, then you're going to pay the base $1,000 management fee. Very common way to structure that in place. A couple other final considerations if you're thinking of doing multifamily. Number one, does the property require an on-site manager? Some states have state requirements that if it's over a certain number of units, you're required to have an on-site manager. For those states that don't require it, there's no right or wrong, but typically when you hit somewhere between 15, 20 units, you're going to at least want a part-time on-site person to be the eyes and ears of the property, to pick up trash when it blows into the parking area. Who's going to pay for that? How are you going to monitor that person? Who's doing the common area maintenance? Are you supposed to drive by there once a week and pick up the trash? Who's shoveling the snow off the common area? Who's emptying the coins out of the laundry machines? Figure that out beforehand. And then last, plan for more tenant management by you. You're going to have tenants complaining about people parking in their parking spots, or neighbors playing their music too loud, people arguing. There's just more tenant management on the multifamily. It's a very, very different game and a very, very different animal to manage multifamily versus single family. So proceed with caution and don't get overly excited about the potential of a multifamily. Just make sure you understand what you're stepping into. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention, this video is coming out in early March. Next month, in April, we have our second Visit Grace event of 2024. I believe we have 2 spots still open. This is where 10 property managers can come, spend 2 days with me and my team. We give you every document, every system manual we have, which, by the way, you can download at our pmbuild.com website. And we train you on how to run a property management business. We're pretty good at that. We've been doing it for 40 years. We give you everything. If you're interested in that, here's what I would encourage you to do. Go to our website, pmbuild.com, go to the events tab, the Visit Grace, and view what some of our prior attendees have said about their experience. I think if you want to build your business and take it to the next level, you will find this very, very beneficial. But how else can we help? Jump on PM Build, check out our podcast, the Property Management Business Podcast. Hope that was helpful, my friends. And until next time, as always, I wish you success.